I watched a very interesting interview just the other day between Dan Wootton and Paul Burrell. Paul Burrell was butler to the late Princess Diana, talking, among other things, about the breakdown of the marriage between Princess Diana's parents and the marriage between Harry and Meghan. Paul says he believes that you will inevitably see cracks in the marriage between Harry and Meghan because of the stress and the pressure from the international attention from the press. And of course, all of the pressure that comes from hitting the headlines for so many different reasons. Now, it was interesting to me because there's a distinct overlap between this conversation and family law, which I practiced in for the first couple of years of practice. And it was interesting because some of the comments that Paul made were absolutely spot on to my experience when talking to separating couples or couples that have separated arguing over custody of the children. Very often the children feel that they are responsible for the breakup of the marriage, and therefore the children act in certain ways, and then when they go on to have relationships themselves, inevitably, if they are the child of a broken marriage, then they will be the one that does everything they possibly can to keep a relationship together, which sometimes means that they fall victim to another party who becomes somewhat manipulative within that relationship and manipulative of that person, because they somehow know that that person will do everything that they can to maintain that relationship. Paul says that he can't be the only one that realizes that Harry may have woken up to the fact that he's realized that he's been brainwashed by beauty or something else in this relationship and has somehow realized the truth.
I've always been worried about Harry. I've always worried about him. And am I the only person in the United Kingdom that is thinking, has Harry finally woken up to the truth? Has he finally seen the truth and what his wife is doing? That he's been brainwashed and that he's been mesmerized by her beauty or something? Because we all know that, but he doesn't seem to see it.
Paul said in the interview, "Am I the only person in the UK that's thinking, has Harry finally woken up to the truth? Has he finally seen the truth of what his wife is doing and that he's been brainwashed and mesmerized by her beauty or something?" Because we all know that, Paul says, but he doesn't seem to see it. Paul goes on, "I personally know Harry and I think he's always wanted to be a father. He's always wanted children. I think this element of splitting from family right now is a little premature. I think he would want to stay in that driving seat to watch his children grow, because if he left this relationship now, he'd lose his children because she'd keep them in America and he wouldn't see them." And from my experience as a barrister practicing in family law in England and Wales, the very notion of losing access to even seeing or spending time with your children very quickly becomes the single most important argument between separating couples. It's very often weaponized. One party or another, and it can be either party, very often will use children as a way of getting at the other party. There is a term for this, which is parental alienation, and courts don't look fondly upon it. But in reality, when these arguments come to court, it very much depends on whose case is argued better. Now, it is often the case when a party is unrepresented that their case just doesn't look very favourable to the court. Not always, but very often, because the case simply may not be put across quite as fearlessly, quite as properly, and even, in some cases, quite as fairly as it might have done had they had proper representation. Not only that, some of the arguments you might think of as being quite unfair. For example, if you are a parent that has 1, 2, or 3 alcoholic drinks each night, and you don't see that as a problem, but the other party puts that forward as a problem to the court, then in my experience, the court has ruled against that party if they refuse to acknowledge that that is a problem, even though many of you watching may not think that is a problem at all. But coming back to Harry and Meghan, speaking hypothetically, if there has been even the briefest of conversations of the possibility of separation and where each party might live, because in these news articles there are rumours supposedly from an insider that Harry spent time out in a hotel somewhere instead of one of the many other bedrooms within the mansion, that does speak to potential trouble between them both. And if that is the case, I can tell you as a practicing barrister that one of the first arguments is going to be who gets what time with the children, when, where and how, and how the arrangements are going to be made. For example, I've been involved in family cases where separated parents cannot agree on a specific location to hand over the child for their time with that child. To the degree that in one case it had to be that parents were on opposite sides of the road and the child escorted across the road by a grandparent, simply because the parents refused to be close enough to each other to physically hand over the child to each other at the handover point. And I echo what Paul said in the interview, which I'll link in the description below so you can go and watch that yourself. He said, "I personally do not want to see Harry unhappy again. I've seen too many tears. I want to see him very happy. I want to see him and his family grow. But there's a niggling doubt in the back of my head." Now, I echo the same thought and feeling for every family case that I've ever been involved with. I didn't want to see any of the parents unhappy. I didn't want to see any of the children unhappy. But I've read countless Kafka's reports where the children blame themselves for the separating parents. They even draw pictures blaming themselves because the parents have separated. And it's very sad for everybody, both parents that separate and for the children. But in the case for Harry and Meghan, if that does happen, it's going to be very difficult indeed, because it's not just going to be 100 miles across the country, it's literally going to be on a different continent. So if you've ever had the misfortune of being involved in a family case, then if you didn't know it already, you do now. I've been involved in many family cases myself as a practicing barrister. If you want help and guidance by way of videos here, leave me comments in the comment section below. I will talk you through the first stages, directions hearings, MIAMs and how they work. Those are essentially mandatory mediation meetings where you talk about the problems and try to resolve issues, right to the first hearing dispute resolution appointments, which is where again you try to resolve issues, only this time with the assistance of the court. And if all of that fails, you end up in court with the court making a decision as to who the child spends time with and who the child is ordinarily going to live with. And just as an insert that I'm recording after I've filmed and started editing this video, I recall that in the very early days of this channel, I did speak about family law a few times. So I will try to dig out a playlist for those videos and link that in the description below as well. Please do forgive the quality. It was in the very early days when I did not have any soundproofing in the room and not as good equipment that I have now. But hopefully the content is still useful and you still find that useful. So I will link that playlist of family videos in the description below. And of course, I'll do some more updated ones if that's what you would like. I think these family issues do affect a lot of people. And whilst this is an international and famous case, just like the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, I feel that I can cover this to relate it to legal issues that we all face every day and hopefully provide you some assistance. So if you want specific videos, again, as I think I've already said in the main video, please do let me know in the comment section below and I will come back and make specific videos for those. So as I said, if you've been involved in one of those cases or you think you might end up involved in one of those cases, leave me thoughts and comments in the box below and I will try to address those in future videos. In the meantime, please do like this video and subscribe. That helps me grow and I'm just about to hit 300,000 and I'm very grateful to you all for subscribing and watching my channel. So thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.